Hi, today I will talk about how to keep going when everything feels heavy. There is a type of silent suffering that thousands of people face daily, but which rarely receives the name or attention it deserves. It's not exactly sadness, nor physical exhaustion, nor even pure anxiety. It's an overwhelming sense of weight, an invisible burden that makes every small moment, every simple task a Herculean effort. Waking up already feels like a battle won. Taking a shower, responding to messages, preparing a meal. All of this seems to require a strength that simply is no longer there. And the cruelest part is that often the person themselves begins to blame themselves for it. I am weak, I am lazy, I lack discipline. But what if this narrative is completely wrong? What if what you call weakness is actually a legitimate psychological symptom of a silently collapsing nervous system? Kelly McGonigal, a psychologist at Stanford University, has spent years investigating this phenomena in populations under extreme stress. Caregivers of terminal patients, professionals in deep burnout, overwhelmed single parents, and her conclusion is clear. The weight these people feel is not a character flaw, it's a chronic biological response of a body living in a state of constant threat. The brains of these individuals literally can no longer differentiate between a common task and a real danger. Everything and every unanswered email, every pending commitment, every postponed decision, everything is interpreted by the body as if it were a life or death situation. This response, called survival mode, activates hormonal circuits that completely drain energy reserves, and the more the body tries to react, the more it exhausts itself. That's why, for those in this state, even rest seems ineffective. They sleep but wake up tired. They take a break but remain exhausted. That's why, for those in this state, even rest seems ineffective. They sleep but wake up tired. As I said, they avoid tasks, but the weight doesn't go away because the problem is not the number of tasks, but how the body is interpreting each one as threat. And this is where science brings a revolution. McGonigal discovered that it's not necessary to eliminate sources of stress, something that, let's face it, is often impossible. What needs to be done is to regulate the nervous system so that it stops interpreting everything as an emergency. This change does not depend on long therapies or meditation. It can start with simple practices based on neuroscience that help the body move out of constant war mode and into a state of regulation. Controlled breathing, gentle movement, brief connection with nurturing people, sleep hygiene, small changes with measurable psychological impact. What this video will show is that feeling everything as heavy does not mean you are failing at life. It means your body is begging for help. And the good news is there are practical, scientific, and proven ways to make this weight lighter. Not by eliminating what burdens you, but by strengthening the system that carries it. Let's understand, from cutting edge psychology, how this chronic overload works, what it is trying to communicate, and most importantly, what you want and what you can start doing today is break this cycle. Because you don't need to be stronger. You need to stop harming yourself with strategies that only worsen the problem. And it all starts with understanding the truth behind the weight. Next, we will dive into the invisible workings of this psychological state and why it traps so many people in silence. Behind the feeling of carrying the world on your shoulders lies a precise biological explanation, repeatedly observed in the studies of Kelly McGonigal and other stress neuroscience researchers. When a person lives under constant pressure, emotional, financial, professional, or existential, the body enters a state of permanent alert. This state is mediated by the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the system responsible for releasing hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, substances created to protect the organism in dangerous situations. The problem is that the mechanism, designed to be activated only in emergencies, begins to function as a continuous operating pattern. The body does not know that the danger is now a spreadsheet, a difficult conversation, or an internal demand. It reacts as if it were a real threat. The modern mind, overwhelmed by the notifications, expectations, and comparisons, triggers the same circuit that our ancestors used to flee from predators. The result is a collapsing psychology. The heart races, breathing becomes shallow, the digestive system slows down, muscle tense, and the mind becomes hypervigilant, ready to react to any stimulus. This combination creates a subjective feeling of weight, not symbolic but physical. Life begins to feel dense, as if each thought carries a ton. McGonigal observed this pattern in people who, at first glance, seemed strong. Doctors dealing with terminal patients, single parents supporting entire families, professionals in high-performance environments. They all reported the same thing, the progressive loss of ability to react. The body enters survival mode and begins to shut down non-essential functions. Creativity, empathy, pleasure, concentration, everything is suspended. The mind reduces its operation to the minimum necessary, just keep functioning. It's at this point that many people describe feeling like robots, operating on autopilot. They are not living, they are merely surviving. The most unsettling part is that the psychological state does not depend solely on the external environment. It's amplified by the way we interpret stress, as McGonigal shows, is the upside of stress. The belief that stress is destructive increases its toxicity. People who believe they are being destroyed by stress release more cortisol and exhibit higher levels of inflammation. In contrast, those who see stress as an adaptive response, a sign that the body is trying to help, have a completely different biological response. Blood vessels remain relaxed, the heart pumps more efficiently, and the mind becomes more focused. Perception alerts biology. In other words, the weight is not just a result of the number of obligations, but of the meaning of the body assigns to them. If each task is interpreted as a threat, the nervous system remains stuck in fight or flight mode. This is the true enemy. Not the list of responsibility, but the internal circuit that transforms them into dangers, and the most dangerous part is that the longer one remains in this state, the more the body adapts to it. The survival mode becomes the new normal. The person forgets what it's like to live in a state of safety, but there is a way out. McGonigal discovered that it's possible to reset this system, literally training the body to exit threat mode and return to a state of balance. This reset does not require drastic changes, just consistent practices that re-educate the nervous system not to react with panic to every daily stimulus. It is science teaching something that ancient wisdom has always known. The body needs to learn to trust again. And that is exactly what we will see next. The first of these practices is simple but powerful, enough to change your psychological state in minutes. A breathing method that interrupts that threat cycle and restores the body's ability to feel safe. In the next segment, we will explore the protocol known as stress reset breathing, the tool that can initiate the reprogramming process of your nervous system. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for your support. Among all the tools that modern neuroscience offers for those living in constant overload, few are accessible, quick and effective as controlled breathing. This protocol, named by Kelly McGonigal as stress reset breathing, is not just a relaxation technique. It's a direct psychological intervention in the autonomic nervous system. When performed correctly, this practice has the power to literally change your body state in just a few minutes, pulling it out of flight or fight mode and leading it to a state of restoration and safety. To understand why this works, it's necessary to comprehend the role of the vagus nerve. This nerve is one of the main communication routes between the brain and the body, especially between the brain and the internal organs. It's responsible for activating the so-called parasympathetic system, known as the rest and digest mode. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, the body understands that it's safe. Heart rate decreases, breathing deepens, muscle tension reduces, and mind quiets. It's the exact opposite of the stress response. Breathing is one of the few bodily functions that we can consciously control, and that in turn directly influences the functioning of the vagus nerve. This is where the power of the technique lies. The protocol is simple. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for another 4 seconds. And then exhales for 6 seconds. So for 4 seconds you will inhale. And then you will hold your breath for 4 seconds again. And then you will exhale for 6 seconds. The key is in the longer exhalation than inhalation. This detail is essential as it activates vagal mechanisms that signal to the brain that the environment is safe. This cycle should be repeated for at least 2 minutes, 3 times a day, or whenever the weight becomes unbearable. The goal is to relax, but to retrain the nervous system not to collapse in the face of everyday stimulus. People who have consistently applied this technique report remarkable changes. A reduction in the feeling of panic in the face of simple tasks, greater mental clarity, and even better sleep quality. McGonigal observed that after a week of practice, many individuals who seemed stuck in a state of paralysis began to resume small actions with memory autonomy. They did not become stronger overnight, but their bodies stopped reacting as if every decision were a threat. And that changed everything. More important than the protocol itself is what it represents. The first step is reclaiming psychological autonomy. By practicing intentional breathing, the individual sends a clear message to their body. We are safe, we can stop fighting. This message, repeated daily, has the power to reverse ingrained patterns of hypervigilance and chronic exhaustion. It's an exercise in sovereignty. You cease to be hostage to your nervous system's automatic responses and begin to take control of your internal state. Of course, breathing alone is not a magic cure. It opens the door, but the path requires continuity. And it's precisely on this path that the next intervention discovered by McGonigal comes in. Regenerative movement. When the body is overloaded, most people try to resolve this with absolute rest or at opposite extreme, pushing themselves into intense workouts in an attempt to sweat out the stress. Both strategies are wrong, but the body really needs is different. In the next segment, we will explore how gentle movement, rather than extreme effort, can metabolize the accumulated stress hormones and hormones in the body and make room for true physical and emotional recovery. When everything feels heavy, the body's natural tendency is to collapse or withdraw. Yet, it's precisely in this state that many people make the most common mistake. They try to react with brute force. They believe that to overcome the weight, they need to push themselves to produce more, to train harder, to be more disciplined. But this mindset, although well-intentioned, often worsens the already compromised psychological state. Kelly McGonigal reveals, based on rigorous research, that a body in a state of chronic overload does not need more pressure. It needs release. When stress accumulates, the body releases a series of hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. These chemical compounds are useful in acute situations as they mobilize energy quickly. However, when they remain circulating in the body for an extended period without being metabolized, they become toxic. This is where the fundamental role of regenerative movement comes in. The science is clear. It's not about running miles or lifting heavy weights. It's about activating the muscle and the cardiorespiratory system in a gentle, constant, and safe way, allowing the body to eliminate the excess accumulated stress hormones. McGonigal observed that intense exercise in people in a state of exhaustion not only does not help, but exacerbates the problem. The nervous system already interprets everything as a threat. Subjecting the body to exhaustive training only reinforces this internal perception of danger. The body understands we are still at war. On the other hand, gentle movements like a slow walk, a sequence of conscious stretches, or a light yoga session send a different kind of message. We are moving because we can, not because we need to escape. This changes everything. Furthermore, gentle movement has another fundamental component. It integrates body and mind. When we are stuck on autopilot, living in a disassociated way, the simple act of walking mindfully can be a ritual of reconnection. Feeling the feet touching the ground, observing the breath, harmonizing with the steps, noticing the environment around, all of this activates areas of brain associated with sensory perception. Interpreting patterns of mental rumination. Exposure to natural light during these walks further enhances the release of serotonin and helps regulate the circadian rhythm, which directly impacts sleep quality. Regenerative movement is therefore a gesture of psychological compassion. It's not about performance, but about emotional and hormonal drainage. It's a pause that recharges the conscious decision to move slowly when everything in you wants to shrink or force itself. And when practiced consistently, this type of movement creates a domino effect. More energy, more mental clarity, more capacity to face the day without collapsing. But McGonigal goes further. She shows that even with regulated breathing and restorative movement, there is still an invisible element that amplifies the weight, and the element is loneliness. The silent isolation that accompanies those living in a state of overload can become a constant trigger for stress. No matter how much a person tries to recover alone, the lack of human connection continues to inform the brain that world is not safe, and this is exactly what we will explore in the next part. How microdoses of genuine social connection can, in surprisingly simple ways, restore the emotional and physical balance of those who no longer sees a way out. There is a form of suffering that does not show up in blood test. It's not easily diagnosed, but slowly consumes the emotional and physical vitality of those who carry it. Isolation, when everything feels heavy, the natural tendency is to withdraw. A person feeling they have no energy for social interactions does not want to be burdened to anyone and gradually begins to pull away. Friends stop calling, messages go unanswered, connections that were once present become silent. The loneliness, previously perceived only as the absence of company, begins to transform into physical pain. Literally, research in social neuroscience shows that chronic loneliness activates the same brain areas responsible for physical pain. The brain interprets disconnection as a signal of danger. After all, throughout human evolution, being alone was synonymous with vulnerability to death. And just like in situation of external threat, the body goes back into survival mode. Stress increases, the immune system weakens, and the subjective perception of weight intensifies. McGonigal identified this pattern in various contexts: lonely caregivers, remote workers in burnout, exhausted parents who had no one to share even words with. They all shared the same feeling: I'm carrying this alone. But here emerges one of the most beautiful insight from the upside of stress. You don't need deep relationships or long therapy sessions to start feeling relief. But what the body needs are microdoses of genuine connection, small interactions that activate the social bonding system and releases oxytocin, the hormones of safety and empathy. This release is not symbolic. It has a direct effect on reducing amygdala activity, the brain's alarm center, regulating cortisol and aiding emotional recovery. A 5-minute conversation with someone who truly listens to you, and a 20-second hug. A short message saying, I thought of you today. Sharing something authentic with someone who does not judge you. All of this is enough for the brain to register we are not alone. And when that happens, the weight begins to redistribute and body relaxes, the mind reorganizes, and the nervous system starts to come out of chronic vigilance. It's important to note that this is not about any social interaction. Superficial connections or with people who drain your energy can have the opposite effect. The McGonigal proposes is strategic. Identify 1 or 2 people who energize you, even minimally, and create short and consistent contact rituals. A weekly check-in, a casual conversation, a moment of active listening. This is not only reduces subjective weight but also strengthens your psychological resilience in the face of real stress. These microdoses act as anchors. When you start to feel like you are sinking, they pull you back. They are somatic reminders that you still belong, that there is still a minimal support network, and biologically, belonging is safety. Safety is regulation. Regulation is lightness. But there is still another invisible enemy that reinforces the weight: the way you organize your time and energy. Most overwhelmed people treat all tasks as equally urgent, as if the entire day were a long sequence of threats. This creates a state of functional panic. In the next segment, we will understand how the simple act of reorganizing your tasks according to energy peaks and so-called task batching plus energy management can drastically reduce the perception of weight without changing the amount of work. You will continue to do everything you need, but your body will no longer treat it as a war. If what you are hearing resonates with you, you will find real value in this video. For many people living under chronic overload, the day begins like an avalanche. Piled up emails, unread messages, overlapping deadlines, pending tasks, competing for immediate attention. The feeling is one of the constant urgency, as if everything is a priority, everything is indispensable, everything needs to be done now. The result is a state of anxious hyperactivity in which the person can no longer distinguish what is truly important from what merely seems important. This confusion between urgency and relevance drains the nervous system more efficiently than the sheer volumes of tasks. Kelly McGonigal precisely points out the structural error behind this feeling of overwhelm. We treat our time as a linear and homogeneous sequence, when in fact it is a biological cycle of peaks and drops in energy. The science of energy management is not just time, shows that the human body operates in rhythms called ultradian cycle, which alternate every 90 to 120 minutes. During this interval, we have natural windows of high performance and periods when the brain needs break to restore attention and focus. Ignoring this cycle is like trying to run a marathon without ever stopping to breathe. Collapse is inevitable. McGonigal proposal is simple yet transformative. Group similar tasks and execute them according to your energy peak, not the clock. This concept is called task batching. Instead of responding to emails, writing reports, making calls, and planning projects all the same block of time, You group by nature and level of demand. Analytical tasks with analytical tasks, creative tasks with creative tasks. The most importantly, you reserve the most demanding activities for the time when your body naturally has more energy, which for most people happens in the first 3 hours after waking up. Doing this has a real psychological impact. The brain stops interpreting the day as a succession of micro threats. When you respect your internal rhythm, your nervous system begins to understand that there is control, there is structure, and there is margin. The result is not just productivity, but relief. A weight that once seemed very big begins to dissolve. The amount of work remains the same, but the perception of effort drops drastically. Moreover, respecting low energy moments is also crucial. Many people try to force productivity during these periods, leading to a type of mental fatigue known as decision fatigue. Instead of trying to perform when the body asks for a break, you can use this window for lighter tasks, such as responding to simple emails, reviewing documents, or even moving briefly. This alternation between deep focus and light effort creates a self-regulating system that sustains energy throughout the day. This strategy is more than organization. It's a gesture of psychological intelligence. When you align your routine with your body's natural rhythms, you stop being a slave to chaos and become the architect of your own time. McGonigal empathizes, but there is still one last key piece in this puzzle. The way you interpret the stress you feel, because even if you breathe, move, connect, and organize your task, if your mind continues to see stress as a sign of failure, it will keep eroding your energy. The next part is a game changer. We will explore how changing the internal narrative about stress, reinterpreting your physical reaction as preparation or not collapse, can alter your biology in real time. This is where the game completely shifts. For decades, we have been taught to fear stress, to see it as an invisible enemy that corrodes health, destroys balance, that must be avoided at all costs. But what if this belief is actually what is weakening us? Kelly McGonigal discovered something deeply integrating, but backed by robust science. It's not stress relief that makes us ill. It is the way we interpret it. When you feel your heart racing before a difficult meeting, when tension rises before an unforgettable conversation, when your breath shortens when facing a new responsibility, your body is reacting with energy. It is mobilizing to protect you, to prepare you. But if your mind interprets these signals as failure, as imminent collapse, you reinforce the idea that you are on the brink of the losing control. And the body responds to this narrative with more alarm, more cortisol, more anxiety. Now, if you change the narrative, everything changes. When you consciously declare, my body is mobilizing energy to help me face this, your nervous system responds in a completely different way. The blood vessels, which previously constricted as an emergency, remain dilated. Blood flow becomes more efficient, the mind becomes clearer, the psychology of performance comes into play instead of the psychology of collapse. This mindset shift is called stress reframe. And it is perhaps the most powerful tool we have to transform the subjective experience of weight into strength. It's not about denying discomfort. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that discomfort is a sign of mobilization, not failure. It's your body trying to help you, not sabotage you. And the most fascinating part, studies shows that simple act of reinterpreting stress as an ally can change not only your momentary state but also your long-term health. People who believe that stress can be helpful live longer, get sick less, and recover faster from traumatic events. They do not have fewer problems, they just face problems with a psychology that is on their side, not against them. So if you wake up early, day feeling overwhelmed, if every task seems like an punishment, if your body is on alert and your mind is tired of fighting, maybe what you need is not strength. Maybe what you need is to learn to talk to your body in a new way. Breathe differently, move differently, connect differently, organize your body wisely, and most importantly, narrate your experience with more compassion and purpose. You don't have to wait for life to get better to start feeling lighter. You can start now, and not with brute force, but with psychological intelligence. If this video resonates with you, comment below. I will stop fighting against myself. You have to write this in comment. This could be your first step toward a new relationship with your body, your mind, and your stress. And if you want to continue transforming the weight you carry into real strength, watch the next video. It's an essential continuation of this journey. subscribe, like, and share with those who also need this kind of relief, because carrying the world on your shoulders alone is no longer an option. Thank you so much for your time.